The hugely popular show The Wire has gained an almost mythic following over the years, with its many layers and levels interweaving different characters and elements in a sprawling epic about the death of an American city. Much of this mythic show's characters, institutions, and situations all emanate from a newspaper article written by the show's creator, David Simon. Some of it also comes from his book, Homicide: Life on the Streets, but I will address that in another video. But David Simon nonetheless wrote a 5-part article about the Baltimore drug gangs of the 80s. The article is called Easy Money: The Anatomy of a Drug Empire. Contained within the article is the world of The Wire. First of all, I may come off as a little meta here. David Simon was a reporter for the Baltimore Sun. He even appears quickly as a reporter during the arrest of Frank Sabatka in Season 2. So I think it's fair to say that this is the entry point for Season 5's journey into the world of newspapers. The article itself is extremely detailed and well written. Obviously, Simon tracked this story for a while and wrote a lengthy piece, a good old-fashioned newspaper series. The first part of the series focuses on little Melvin Williams, a drug kingpin, most in the form of the show's iconic Avon Barksdale. It must also be mentioned that little Melvin Williams actually appears in the show as the deacon who helps Cuddy get his boxing gym. Anyway, the first part of the article details Williams' rise from a pool hall hustler to a major player in the city's narcotics game. Little Melvin was a charismatic character who made much of his initial wealth and reputation in the sphere of gambling. It also goes on to detail his wily nature, concealing his money and avoiding contact with the day-to-day business of actually selling drugs to the customers. Again, we were able to see the outline for the Avon character, heavily insulated from the street activities with his ownership of a strip club and the funeral home. Little Melvin had a holding company which controlled a series of businesses including a tow truck company, tons of real estate, and a nightclub. Through painstaking investigation using tax records, detectives like Ed Burns, the real-life McNulty so to speak, and one of the writers of The Wire, and Harry Edgerton, were able to find where all of little Melvin's money was being washed.
You follow drugs, you get drug addicts and drug dealers. But you start to follow the money, and you don't know where the fuck it's gonna take you.
They also stumbled upon a payment to a state senator as a consulting fee for Melvin's holding company. Does this sound familiar? Obviously, this is where they came up with the idea of the drug money sprawling beyond the streets and into the halls of power. The saga of Little Melvin includes a great deal of twists and turns. During the 1968 race riots in Baltimore, the National Guard and mayor actually asked for his help in quelling the black community. He came before a crowd of angry protesters and sued them enough to stop the chaos. Little Melvin was, however, also a thorn in the side of the police. His careful nature frustrated officers with their inability to catch him in a narcotics rap, even though they knew he was a major player in the dope game. The police were able to ensnare him twice in what is largely believed to be a crooked manner. In one instance, the police are believed to have planted drugs on him. Needless to say, this led to several legal battles and some sentences for Little Melvin. However, each time he was able to be released without serving his whole sentence, likely the inspiration for Avon's early escape from prison. After his release, Little Melvin gathered all the drug dealers he was in contact with in the city in a motel room and set up a vast distribution network with him at the helm. Melvin himself was a pillar of the community, helping out when people needed rent money or food. He owned several houses and a Maserati, perhaps his only extravagance. Otherwise, he was a vegetarian who would work out religiously and in his spare time tinkered with early Mac computers and Commodore 64s. Beyond Melvin Williams, the article is replete with other characters that make their way onto the show. Prop Joe is mentioned as a man who hung around pool halls frequented by Little Melvin and helped to school him in the world of gambling. Perhaps some of the most interesting stuff relates to Little Melvin's lieutenants. A man named Lamont Farmer, also called Chin, helped to package and distribute Melvin's dope. He was similarly wily, often taking police on wild goose chases in his cars, swerving and pulling wild U-turns to lose his tails. He was also known to take economics and business classes and bring that knowledge to the streets. He even owned a print shop, using it as a front business for his drug enterprise. One can't help but feel like this was one of the inspirations for the character of Stringer Bell.
Let him wait. No, you're not gonna bring that corner bullshit up in here. You hear me? Yo, you know what we got here? We got an elastic product. You know what that means? That means when people can go elsewhere and get their printing and copying done, they're gonna do it. You acting like we got an inelastic product and we don't.
Perhaps one of his best inventions was a telephone code used to run the drug empire with beepers. By jumping the number 5 on the telephone or reversing numbers in the beeper messages, Melvin and his gang were able to fool anyone watching. Very similar to the beeper code used by Avon and his gang on the show. Detective Harry Edgerton was able to figure out the code and began using it to monitor the drug gang's activities. First getting pen registers to build a network of numbers used to call each other, and then slowly identifying who each number belonged to.
Now, take the 7, jump it over the 5. You get 3. Jump the 1 over the 5. you get 9. With 4, you get 6. 3, that's 7. 4 is 6. A 3 again. And 2 is 8. 0 switches with the 5. So 7, 1, 4, 3, 4, 3, 2 is 3, 9, 6, 7, 6, 7, 8. Our number.
And that's the code.
Yeah, and it works because it's all about where the buttons are on a phone.
The article also detailed more of Little Melvin's lieutenants in a section that explores the violent nature of maintaining a drug empire. A Nathan Bodie Barksdale is mentioned. Barksdale lost part of his leg in a childhood accident, but that didn't make him any less ruthless. He walked with a single crutch and was implicated in several murders. His sadistic nature was well known. In one instance, Barksdale, mistaking the group for hitmen coming to kill him, tortured 2 men and a woman in a housing project apartment, burning them with the curling iron and other forms of torture. Here I would say is the inspiration for the torture of Brandon the Stick-Up Boy, which causes the long-standing feud between Omar and Barksdale's organization. I would also like to draw attention to his nickname, Bodie. Now obviously this is where the character of Bodie's name came from. However, I also think initially Bodie's nature was more ruthless, shown in the killing of Wallace, and more modeled on the real Nathan Barksdale. And later his character was softened as the seasons went on.
The motherfucking man. Man, you said you was a fucking man. Stand up straight.
The article also mentions lieutenants named Roland Bell, whose nickname was Ronnie Moe. I would also say from this one name we can discover several characters: Russell Bell, aka Stringer, Ronnie Moe, and Roland Bryce, aka Weebay. It could also be said that the ruthless nature of these enforcers is alive in the character Weebay.
Alright, tell me it was LaDante's cousin or some such. He found out I ate the charge. He busted my chops.
LaDante? I can't even remember that one. You need a scorecard to keep up with your lethal ass.
The article finally winds down with the capture of Little Melvin for a final time. However, it takes a circuitous route. While homicide detectives were on the murder of a young woman in her apartment building, they stumbled upon the fact that she had been seeing another one of Little Melvin's lieutenants, a man named Louis Savage. Savage had a series of girlfriends, and the jealous DeSarah C. Press threatened to go to the police and tell them all she knew about his work. Instead, she got a bullet. The police only began to unravel the mystery when an anonymous tipster called saying that a man named Cookie was with her on the night she died, Cookie being Savage's nickname. Again, this instance was pulled right from real life and dumped into the show. When McNulty and Bunk investigate the murder of Deirdre Crescent, and the anonymous tipster who puts her with a D the night she was killed, and also leads the detectives further into Avon Barksdale's world. Through a painstaking process of both wiretapping, surveillance, informants, and undercovers, Ed Burns and Edgerton and the feds were able to ensnare Farmer, Williams, and others. Firstly, they followed Louis Cookie Savage and found he worked closely with Lamont Farmer. Secondly, a man who was close friends with Melvin Williams was arrested for selling dope to an undercover in Virginia. With information from him, they were able to move in closer on Melvin and his gang. Firstly, they had an undercover do a series of buys from Lamont Farmer, who was extremely cautious even in the selling of the drugs, never actually handing the drugs over to anyone personally. The real coup of this operation was wiretaps that showed Lamont Farmer contacting Melvin Williams and discussing drug deals. Melvin would ride his bike from his house to a nearby payphone and discuss in code different drug transactions, even once saying the word cocaine in Pig Latin to Farmer. The police had also discovered an apartment used as a stash house for incoming drugs into the area. They placed video cameras surreptitiously into the house and saw many of Melvin's lieutenants bagging up drugs for sale. They even had the video cameras running when they raided the apartment, arresting everyone inside. Melvin Williams got 24 years for his part in the scheme. Louis Savage got 30, and Lamont Farmer got 7. The article goes on to detail that while it is a blow to narcotic sales in the city of Baltimore, it is unlikely to make a real dent. Simon details a series of other drug rings operating in the city and the fact that no matter how much the police do, a person can still go down to the open-air drug markets and purchase cocaine or heroin for a reasonable price. Perhaps this section of the article states the ultimate thesis of The Wire and one of David Simon's overarching points of the series. Arresting drug dealers and putting dope on the table, so to speak, does not help to stop the flow of drugs. To catch kingpins like Little Melvin requires painstaking investigative work that could take months or even years to show results. Additionally, even busting a major drug dealer does not stop drugs from entering the city and reaching the users. The market will always be there and prohibition does not seem to be the way. Curtailing the violence associated with the trade is certainly a noble cause, but the failure of the war on drugs was apparent even when this article was written in the late 1980s. This, I think, is the point Simon was trying to drive home when he wrote The Wire nearly 20 years after he wrote this article. This is also what I think makes the show so powerful and poignant in today's society, where we have seen decades of destruction reaped by the war on drugs, mass incarceration, and the militarization of the police. It didn't work then, and it doesn't work now. The article contains tons more information, which you can feel free to read. I will post a link below.